You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lane, here every week, talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And this week, we finally have winter. We needed that. I know you folks in the high country got some snow. I'm hearing some good snow in the White Mountains. Got some on the ski slopes. That's all really good. We'll take it. We need some moisture now for you new folks. You're new to the area. This is your first season in the mountains. I had some of my new time folks come in and going, oh no, we haven't had moisture since November. We're in a drought. This is the way it is every year. It's not different. It's not unusual. It is seasonally unpredictable. That's how the mountains are. The good news is that this sets the stage, the storm pattern, for our wettest month. Not our second wettest month. March is a wet cycle. So you'll see that there is more moisture that we record every year. Look at 100 years of data. Typically, the month of March is wetter. And so this weather, I had a friend, a customer come in from San Diego, new here. He goes, oh man, it's been so nice. I've been able to ride my convertible around all winter. It's even better than San Diego. Well, my friend, I'm afraid that's over for the next few weeks. Now, April will be back at us where it's just gorgeous. Now, but it looks like there's a wet pattern that happens, and we need it. The forest needs that moisture to maintain the health, to reduce fire hazards and that kind of stuff. So to increase the wildflower blooms, this is all good. So if you've been planting, this weather pattern we have is going to be the magic. This is what's going to really make things pop. Now, the bitter cold, I know the temperature dropped by 10 degrees this week, but that's not cold. I mean, 62 degrees, that's not cold, folks. I mean, we're done with that single digits, 0 degrees. That always happens in January. So I think you're done with the bitter, but we're not done with the frost. What was that? Friday. There was a lot of frost, like the heaviest frost I've seen, at least on my gardens, I've seen so far this year. So it's been kind of nice. That's good. That takes the moisture out of the air and forces it to land on your gardens. And then that thaws, that's basically dawn, and then waters the gardens. That is a great way to water your cold hardy things in the gardens. So my pansies have just been, they're celebrating this week. They love that moisture, humidity, cloud cover, chill in the air. I think they've set a whole nother set of blooms just because they love this weather that we gave them this last week. And they're going to love the weather that comes. Now, those are cold hardy. Frost, they love frost and a bit of snow, and they like all of that. The kale is doing the same thing. My snapdragons are starting to bloom again. It's crazy. Heucheras are up. Things are happening. The daffodils are up and strong. What is that? Dianthus or carnations are starting to bud up again. So it's all leading indication of spring is right around the corner. We just got a fairly large load of fruit trees this week, here at Waters Garden Center at least. And so some big, beautiful, instantaneous, what did we get? Peaches, we got plums, apples, pears, apricots, all of that came in. Cherries are in. And the buds are huge, just beautiful. And the thing with your fruit trees, if you've never done fruit here before, and you like fruit trees, you like that sustainable, edible, pick your own, juice it, use it, can it, kind of stuff, which is that's where I live. I love that. If you're doing that, be aware. You need to up your game. You need to do your homework. You can't just buy a fruit tree and put it in the ground and expect fruit. That does not happen. And here's the reason why. I'm just going to educate you really quickly. There's there's a lot of pressure from Phoenix, from the deserts, and those stores, especially if you're buying stuff from the boxes, those big inanimate retailers that don't care about you, your soul, your family, or your neighborhood. The box stores. Oh, wait, let me get off my soapbox. Hold on. Take a deep breath, Ken. Support family business, will you? Anyway, what happens is that purchaser down there, probably they aren't even in Phoenix. They're probably in Atlanta or wherever their headquarters is, and hits a button and goes, send 50 of those to every one of my stores in Arizona. And so you'll see these Phoenix varieties up here, which they grow, but they won't fruit up here. I'm talking specifically fruit trees. I could go into every segment of product category, but just fruit trees. And so you'll see I get too many customers coming in. Yeah, I've got this apple. I go, what kind? Well, it's a Pixie. It goes in the desert. Needs 250 chilling hours. I'm going, yeah, it's been in bloom for a month, right? It's in March. It's in bloom. There's no way. It's impossible for that fruit tree to actually have a blossom or a fruit left by the last frost date in May. That's in Prescott, much less you poor folks in Flagstaff and Payson and White Mountains. You really don't stand a chance. It will grow, it will live, but it will never fruit. It's considered an ornamental tree in the mountains. Down in the deserts, it fruits and does well, and it's because of chilling hours. Let me explain that. So there's an internal mechanism. It's built within the DNA of a fruit tree that at so many cold nights, I will bloom. And it's God's programmed this into the genetic makeup of that tree. And so in the mountains of Arizona, we need fruit trees with a lot of chilling hours. So it needs to be chilled or frosted or cold for a lot of hours before it's programmed to bloom. The reason we're doing that is we want it to bloom as late into spring as possible, so that we get it out of the risk of frost. So it'll bloom, and the frost won't come and take the fruit or the blossoms. So we need fruit trees that have 6, 7, 8, 1,000 chilling hours before they'll actually bloom. I know I'm going into detail. I'm trying to explain this in simple layman's terms. So hopefully you can grasp this over the airwaves. But desert varieties will have 200, 300, 400 chilling hours, and then they're blooming. So if you plant that tree up here, it will blossom. It will be healthy. It can go through the winter, but it will bloom far, far too early for us. And so it blooms where there's a whole lot of frosting, a possibility on that tree. And so we get customers coming in going, oh, my tree's in bloom already. Well, that's because you planted the wrong tree, my friend. You didn't do your homework. So if you're planning on planting edible plants, do some quick research. Make sure, and you're looking at chilling hours, or you're talking to neighbors that you know are gardeners, asking them the variety, or you're just coming to a reputable family-owned garden center that actually cares about their neighbors. They aren't just selling plants to make a buck. They're selling plants for success, for your success, because they know if you're successful, you'll come back and shop at that, support that family business again. And it goes, we've got folks, we're on our third generation of family folks, customers coming in shopping here because that's the formula for success. Make sure your customers aren't just buying a plant, but they're buying garden success. If they're successful, they'll come back and they'll tell their friends. And that's what keeps family restaurants and hardware stores and garden centers going for 56 years now. So this has been our formula. So just do your homework and check on that. But it's because of the chilling hours of your fruit trees specifically. I would say you could go all the way down to grapes. Grapes are the same way. So I won't get into varieties and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of them, but maybe we can have Lisa do that for us. But the general rule is you need plants that can take the cold, freeze and thaw, that bloom and come out as late in spring as possible. And if you do that and you treat them with any amount of care, fertilizing, just watering, that kind of stuff, they're going to fruit consistently year after year after year. Up in the mountains, we grow apricots, nectarines, plums, peaches. We think pears, apples, of course. What else? Almonds, There's a Carpathian walnut you can grow. No real pecans. The tree will grow nicely, but it just won't nut up here. Maybe once you get down the Verde Valley, Cottonwood, Sedona, yes. Kirkland, Skull Valley, yes. But up in the higher, once you're above 5,000 feet, no. I'm sorry. And those are the fruit trees. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, also known as the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain landscapes.
Hi, Ken with the plants of the week and our majestic giant pansies.
Mammoth blooms smother this 12-inch plant right through winter.
Fragrant like its fairy-faced cousin, this giant bloomer has the perfect balance between evergreen foliage and flower brightness.
Hardy and carefree, this local pansy brings the garden back to life, all for just $5.99.
You'll only find them at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Where people who love majestic pansies, they love to shop.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And we are back with Lisa Waterslane in the studio. So she comes each week to just share the garden questions, what other folks are talking about, what other gardeners are asking. And with that, you get a feeling for seasonality. You get a feeling for just what's going on in your neighborhood, because gardening doesn't happen in just your backyard. It happens in that entire part of the city, really for that entire part of the county. They all happen at the same time. The grasshoppers hatch within a week or two, all at the same time. The fruit trees bloom all at the same time. The bulbs come up all at the same time. And it's more elevation is what changes it, or north, south, east, or west. This is valuable. So welcome back to the studio, Lisa.
Hi, Ken. How much caffeine do you have today, Ken?
I went on a rant at the start of the show, and so I guess I must still be fired up.
Listening. Your spring is wound pretty tight, honey.
It just bothers me this time of year because now I'm doing all my comparison shopping, making sure we're relevant, and then doing all that retailer stuff. Yep. We're shipping stuff in, trying to and I get riled because I see what's going on in the marketplace and other garden centers, and some of it's just not right. It bothers me.
Boy.
Anyway,
we need to get you some ginger honey tea or something.
And some deep meditation. I'll take a breath. It's nice being in a small space with a pretty gal. Yeah. It's been busy this week at the garden center too. So lots of shipments, you're filling up 2 acres of plants. It just takes some energy to keep that going. So new tables are up.
We'll do some meditative yoga for you once we're done. I don't want you to stroke out. Heart attack.
That is probably how I'll go. Cardiac event like the rest of all the men in my family. But wow, in our short lives, we get a lot done.
I know it'll be out in the garden center, too.
Probably so.
Good thing we're near a fire station.
Probably it'll be, I was working really hard on Tuesday. We were just working it. And putting all these big evergreen trees, each one weighs 200-300 pounds. Yeah. They're 6-7 foot. Tom and I just knocked it out of the park.
You did.
Got it all done. I went to lodge and sat down in the chairs, and my muscles said, "You are going to pay for today." They started cramping. You were with all the guys in this small, quiet place, supposed to be respectful. And you're going, I need to lay down on the ground and just cry. Oh, man.
Oh, it's spring.
Anyway, that's every spring. It's the same.
It is.
So keeps you young, keeps you fit, keeps you reason to get up in the morning.
Okay. Yes.
So,
you want questions? First I thought I would do a short PA. Is that what they call it? I forget
Public
what they call it.
announcement?
Public
P-
announcement.
yeah,
There
yeah.
you go. If you have not gotten your pre-emergent out, by golly,
good.
get out there and put that sucker
advice.
down
Yeah.
because we've had moisture. They're expecting more Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, this week.
You definitely want to get that out there. It will save you so much work later on.
So you should explain, just while you're on that PA, public announcement, what does pre-emergent do and why is it so valuable in a rock lawn or our type of landscapes? Why is
Right.
it so important?
Well, it prevents that seed. Well, it burns that little root off the seed once it starts to germinate. So it keeps so much of that weed matter down in your yard. Whether you use rock, whether you use bark like we do, it just prevents so much of that weed from being able to get a foothold in your yard. And the problem with seed is it drops weeds as they drop more seed. So
Yeah.
you just end up getting more and more and
Compounds,
more.
yeah.
So if you can prevent it, boy, you just save yourself so much work.
I just talked to Paul and the crew here at the Garden Center. He just put 13 bags
Oh, okay.
over the entire. Now, this is a huge commercial property, but weeds in a garden center is nothing but more spreading disease and attracting insects. So we do not allow weeds. And that's our number one defense is the weed and grass stopper by high yield.
Right.
We put that down and it just twice a year now, and we do it right before the monsoons.
Yeah.
Keeps most of the weeds. We'll spot check things,
Oh,
but
yeah, you'll get a few.
95% weeds are done.
And it prevents you from having to spray those glyphosates, the Roundup, later in the year. So
Yeah.
it's definitely of benefit and easy to apply. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to put this stuff out.
So it's a granular product. I'll just explain how it's done. It's a granular. It's like fertilizer. It looks like fertilizer. And then when rain hits it or moisture, you don't have to have rain. You can water it in, but you need moisture within 30 days to activate it and get it in the soil. Once it's in the soil, it stays active for about 6, 7, and maybe 8 months or so. And as you use it over the years, it gains. It just does more and more good or prevents more and more weeds as you use it more often. So it actually gains traction if you use it 2, 3, 4 times through the years. Again, we're using it twice a year,
Right.
and we hardly ever weed. We don't
We
have time to
don't.
weed. In spring, we're here at the garden
Right.
center.
Very,
we just-
very little weed in our yard.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you travel, if you like to cruise around, if you just don't like work. Now, if you're bored, you need something to do, buy a new hoe. Go out there and keep track of it. But if you don't like weeding, that's the way to go about it. Weed
Definitely.
and grass stopper.
So I
Good
thought
advice.
I would throw that out there. For those of you who haven't done it yet, you have time, but get out there.
Q&A. What's the question?
Questions. Well, here's a good one. What is the optimum month for putting in lawn using
Okay.
seed?
Oh, good. Good question. There's actually 2 optimal months, and it's spring and fall. Those are your absolute best month. Now, I'm just quoting the book here. For the mountains of Arizona, this is not Google or Chicago or East Coast. This is us. It's not California. It's not Phoenix. This is us. The month of March, I would say for most of the mountains of Arizona. Okay, it's probably the month of April. For the higher altitudes, that'd be Flagstaff, Williams, Pinetop Lakeside, those areas, Greer. But for the rest of us, March. So you want it to be cool and you want it to be frosty, but you don't want the soil to be frozen. So as soon as you get the soil thawed, you're ready to go. So that's March, and then the next time is going to be October, just as you start to see that leading edge of frost. The seed do better when it's very cool out. And it takes the pressure off of keeping it watered, scorching in summer, gets a deeper root before the heat comes. You can do it any month, just about. You could do it in April, May, June, July, August. You could do it those times, but now you need to be much more careful with the watering. You need to watch. You can't make a mistake. But in the month of March, you can almost blunder your way through, and the grass comes up. It's thick and lush, and it just looks good. And we've got a handout. I guess we should also cover what kinds of seed. It's bluegrass or fescue are the main mountain seeds that stay green year round. You know, you Xeriscape folks are going to bend my ear now. Okay, fine. You can put buffalo grass and blue grama and Bermudas, but those are just summer grasses. They only look good when it's hot for about 4 months in the mountains. The rest of the time they look brown and dead if you can have grass, have it green year round. That's
Right.
that's bluegrass and fescues.
And it doesn't take as much. I know people get all bent about the water, but we, as long as you're not doing acres upon acres, if you just want a nice little patch, heck, go ahead. But yes, you have a sheet called the 11 and a half steps to soil prep for lawns or something. And I haven't figured out what that half step is yet, but I'm working on it.
It's
honey.
make you read it. Where is that? Make you look deeper.
Someday I'll find it. Well, what's that half step? But while we're on lawns, quick question. Tom wants to know, can you put a lawn around a blue spruce, or is it going to harm the spruce?
Oh, that's good. Why don't we just go with blue spruce, pinyon pines, junipers, evergreens? What happens is a lot of that, the evergreens will litter. They're evergreen, but they aren't. They actually drop the needles on the inside of the tree will drop needles. And so it will tend to suffocate that or bury and change the pH. There's some things that happen. So generally speaking, you won't see grass under an evergreen because of that. Secondly, evergreens typically don't like water. And so you're putting a drought-hardy thing, an evergreen tree, in a water-heavy lawn. Generally what they'll do is they'll put an island around that evergreen and not have grass growing under it, but around it, so that you can mitigate some of the overwatering of the evergreen, give it help it breathe, and then help the lawn not get damaged by all that acidic debris falling down. So I would say no. But come talk to us, and we can talk about how to do it. Ken and Lisa Lane and the Mountain Gardeners. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
In a new place, it's difficult to know who to trust, how to get help at the house, and which nursery will simply do what they say they'll do.
At Waters Garden Center, we're here to help, in the landscape at least.
Our team of plant ambassadors know your neighborhood, the plants that add color, increase privacy, and add fragrance and beauty.
And we can show you exactly how to plant locally, or we have teams to do all the work for you.
We are Ken and Lisa Lane, and we guarantee our plants will live up to every promise here at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
Now let me do a quick segment on one of my dearest favorite plants. We just stocked up. And I think that every landscape, every yard, every home, every apartment building, every townhome, every hotel, every yard should have a lilac. It's in some place, a variety. Just pick a variety. They do so incredibly well in the mountains of Arizona, and they're drought hardy because they're so deep rooted. Beautiful fall color. They're fire wise. So if a wildland fire comes, it's less likely to catch on fire. Ashes aren't going to light on it, and it's going to explode like it would a manzanita. Deadly when it comes to fire. Like an evergreen, deadly when it comes to fire, wildland fires. They just explode like a matchstick. Not lilacs. They do so great. A quick education on lilac and why you want one. Let's kind of explain that. But why the varieties? There's different types of varieties. Now, your grandparents grew the common lilac or old-fashioned lilac. It goes by a couple names. Classic purple fragrance, big bush, up head high, maybe a little higher if you just let it go. Very fragrant. Oh, my goodness. So that's you can still plant those. And they do quite well. They do beautifully well, but people are starting to collect lilac much like they do roses or some other flowers, dahlias. They'll collect lilacs, and there's so many varieties. What you'll basically have, there's 3 basic varieties and then some colors into each one of those. A lilac, common lilac, there's a breakout of that. So they're larger lilac. They're very fragrant typically, have a lot of beautiful, heavy, sweet-scented lilac smell. You can harvest those flowers, take them inside in a vase. You can put them into potpourri mixes. They're just wonderful. There they've got some variations of colors, basically plays on purple or blue or lavenders, but they'll make like Sensation. It's a purple flower with a variegated white petal. Very stunning. Still has the same fragrance. You've got Blue Sky. It's a real light pale blue. It's really pretty. I think it's prettier than the common lilac because you can see it from a distance better. But that's another variety or play on the common lilacs, the larger, more fragrant lilac. From there you go with French lilac. Yes, French, like European French lilacs. These, the French have come up with some brilliant, just beautiful colors. Bright purple, like deep, rich, royal purple, reds, very pure white lilacs. These are typically European lilacs. Still get some size, but they're not as famous for the fragrance. Yes, it has a fragrance, but really what you're buying that European or French lilac for is the color is so unique. You just got to have one. Then there's the miniature lilacs. There's a whole series of lilacs coming out now that are dwarfed. They get half size. So I've got a bloomerang lilac. It's been in the ground for 4 or 5 years. I've kind of forgotten. It's now hip high, about ball shaped, and it has the same flower that the common lilacs have, the same fragrance the common lilac has. The flower's a little bit smaller, similar color, same fragrance, but it stays short. So now you can use a lilac in a container. I've got it in a raised bed right next to a walkway. I didn't want it to overpower that space and start to encroach my walkway, my steps. So I used a dwarf lilac. So bloomerang also, here's what they've figured out. They figured out how to make them bloom more than once. So bloomerang's kind of a play on words, like boom, comes back and does it again. Bloomerang, mine bloomed 3 times last year, much like a rose. Blooms in spring, takes a little rest, blooms again in summer, takes a little rest, blooms again in fall. It's a great plant. There's a whole series. Now, someone just asked me, when's the best time to plant lilac? Well, any time of the year you want, but your best selection of lilacs at any garden center right now, because they're loading up. We try to front load the garden center right before the lilacs bloom. They're a spring bloomer, so they'll bloom end of March through April, May is when their bloom cycle naturally is. So we try to, you've got hundreds of choices now. Same with forsythia, hundreds of choices right now. Whereas in the fall, yes, you can plant one, but it's probably only going to be a common lilac, 1 or 2 varieties. Now you've got a dozen different varieties to pick from, and it's a good time to plant them with our weather because they're dormant. They'll wake up, bloom. You can enjoy the fragrance and beauty, and then watch the beautiful green foliage and that nice gold color as it turns in autumn. Great plant. There, now you're an expert on all things lilac.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Not everyone can grow wildflowers, but we'll make sure you're not one of them.
At Waters, we know which wildflowers sprout, thrive, and bloom with success.
We're wild about wildflowers with many of our own Arizona blends.
Like our Arizona Native Mix, Butterfly and Hummingbird mixes, and all are big, bold, and beautiful.
At Waters, we know wildflowers, and winter's a season to spread new seed.
Waters Garden Center, where people who love their flowers wild, they love to shop for seed.
All right, so back in the studio with us is my favorite gal in all the world, Lisa Waters-Lane. She comes and just shares her garden opinions, her garden expertise, her garden style on this airwave. And so the whole segment is just for you.
Oh.
And sprinkle with a little bit of me.
Little bit.
Okay.
Little bit.
Sprinkle with, I like a microphone. My mother gave me a Mr. Microphone as a kid, and I've always liked one ever since.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway.
You do all the talking.
No.
I'm just for looks.
That's true, and I like it that way. And you're doing great, by the way.
Oh, thanks, honey.
So what do you got for us this week?
Well, I think you were hitting on it earlier. At least I think I heard you out in the hallways. Fruit trees. It is definitely that time. Definitely still an interest in fruit trees.
Yeah.
A few years ago when the economy was kind of going south, there was a huge interest of people. They wanted to plant trees and landscapes that they could, eat from. And I thought, alas, when things turn around, people will go back to regular stuff. But there is still a huge interest in planting fruit trees, grapes, edibles in the landscape.
The Victory Garden was a big deal back then, 5 years ago. But you know who I think is driving this? I see more and more younger families, the millennials.
True.
They have great interest, way more than our grandparents, even the boomers had, in sustainability, environmental. Where does your food come from? And they're playing with, experimenting with fruit trees, not just trees, but the brambles, the grapes, all that stuff, but trees especially. Part of that is families. You got to feed a big family, but part of it is health. And finally, I think we're finally starting to, as they take their role in society and influence, their influence in our fruit trees, we have to bring in more for those first-time home buyers. Yeah. They were looking for that. I think they're more environmentally in tune. What's going on? It's the rape and pillage and plunder of the earth. I mean, just that whole thing that maybe we haven't been as responsible as we could be. They are responsible. It's just fun to watch that. That's my gut. I don't have research on that, but that's what I see when I help customers here at least at Waters Garden Center.
Yeah. So a lot of those millennials are now buying homes.
Yeah.
And you're right. They are interested in putting in landscapes and they're more in tune with, they want to get in touch with the earth again and be out in their yards and not just in front of a TV or a gamer console. It's nice to see.
I mentioned the fruit trees. I didn't mention varieties or any of that, just what to look for. It really was just really 30,000-foot view. Yeah. Can you take us deeper, or what do you have in mind?
Well, thinking about your fruit trees and how to use them in the yard, there's different ways to think about using them. And one of the perfect ways, especially here in the Southwest, is putting them on the side of the home that you need to shade.
Oh, sure.
So that southwest side of the home. And you get that shade in the summer when you really need it to help cool the house, but it's going to lose its leaves in the wintertime, so you get that heat. So it's one of those perfect trees to put in for energy use. Plus, you get just the beautifulness of the blossoms. You cannot beat a fruit tree when it's blooming.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Or fruiting. It's just a little ornament, Christmas ornaments all over it. And if you harvest it or use it at all or give it to the food bank at least, tremendous benefits from all seasons, really.
Right. You can also, a lot of people have been in lately, you can tell homes are going up because people come in going, I need screen trees, I need screen trees. Well, you can use your fruit trees to throw into that screening. Your screen can't just be one variety of tree, 20 of one variety of tree, because that's not very attractive, in my opinion. So throw some fruit trees in there. It certainly breaks it up. It adds depth to your screen that helps with sound. So it's another way to use it. And another way is just use it as a specimen in your yard. If you have a smaller yard and you want a beautiful tree out there, I think a fruit tree certainly fits the bill, because you get that beautiful bloom, a nice tree, you get fruit. A lot of them have pretty good fall color.
They all have. Yeah. All of them have fall color. I mean, oranges to reds, typically.
I mean, it's not going to be a maple, but you still get. And the thing I like about fruit trees is they really do have a nice structure to them. Nice canopies give you. It's not an ugly tree. Most of them are very pleasant to look at.
I mean, I'm looking at the cherries. I just was loading up the cherry section. Apricots the same way, but the cherries had this bright red bark. It's beautiful red bark. The apricots we got in, they had this chunky, almost corky looking, not quirky, corky looking bark. Very interesting. Right. One of the best trees we've ever had for production was at the corner of our southwest corner of our house. We're using it as a shade for a bedroom. It just got so hot. We put it fairly close, within 8-10 feet of the house. I put an apricot there, and what I found was apricots generally, they're the first ones to bloom. And so generally people complain about, my apricots got frosted out again. Next to the house, it was amazing. Virtually every year we got apricots because it was by the house, southwest side. There was some sort of microclimate there and then we got the shade in the summer. It was just all the seasons were covered with that one apricot.
Definitely. And they help with the bees. So if you're into pollinators, fruit trees, excellent for that.
Yeah.
But you're right. We have gotten tons of fruit trees in. We really stocked up. And apples, I think, are probably one of the most popular trees for here, which I totally understand. You got to love apples. And
Apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah. Gives them nothing to do. Honeycrisp has become probably one of the most popular apples. We can hardly keep that one in stock.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's a great apple. But the thing to remember about the Honeycrisp is it needs a friend.
It needs a pollinator. Yeah.
So, if you have a small yard and you can only fit one in there, thing to remember is I better get one that pollinates all by itself, self-fruitful. Yeah. And you'll probably touch on this later if you're going to go on.
Not really.
No?
Go ahead. I mean, self-fruitful it pollinates itself. Needs a pollinator. It needs a different variety. It can't be too Honeycrisp. It's got to be Honeycrisp and a Fuji or a Red Delicious or a Gala
Granny
or
Smith.
Something else.
Something totally different. And those are really good questions to ask when you're purchasing.
Yeah.
Does this tree need a pollinator? You better know that. And you better make sure that the people answering you have the correct answers for you.
Or you won't get fruit.
You will not get fruit. So very important. Now, some things don't need. Your peaches, more often than not, are self-pollinating. So you don't really need to worry about it so much. But there are one or two out there that do need a pollinator. So ask that question. Apricots are mostly self-pollinating. And I think I heard you talk about getting varieties that are for your environment.
Correct.
So the apricots we bring in, Harcot, the Chinese Mormon, they all have the high chill hours. So they're the ones that you're most likely to get fruit off of.
I wouldn't even bother with any other variety but those three because we have tried that over and over, tried different ones that we've introduced. Those varieties you just mentioned, the Chinese Mormons, Harcots, they produce here. All other varieties look good, but don't put fruit on. So I wouldn't even bother with anything but those three. Can I also mention, too, I know you got a list there. Just make sure you're getting a tree that's a fruiting age. I'm seeing too many young trees show up. A fruit tree has to be about 7 years old before it actually fruits. It needs to be at the farm for 7 years, growing before it's old enough to produce fruit. Kind of like people. You got to be a certain age. You get to that age where you can reproduce. Make sure it's not a whip. So you want fruit trees that produce fruit like today, not 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Especially our clientele. They always want, what's the biggest tree I can get? Yeah. And what we try to bring in is all different sizes, from little bits, the 5-gallon on up to gorgeous specimens.
Mm-hmm. You had some beautiful Comis pears. But Comis, everyone thinks of Bartlett as the one, or Bosque, some of those. And those are good. I think the Comis has a same flavor, but it has a longer shelf life. It doesn't rot as fast. It's got a little bit firmer, a little more apple-like thing. I also like the Asian pears. Oh, my goodness. Those are
very delicious.
My mouth's watering just thinking about them. So cherries are in, from sour cherries, pie cherries, which are very unusual.
Very popular.
Yep, to the sweet cherries, your Bings, Tartarians, Vans, all that. So it's a good time to plant fruit trees now. It's best to plant them before they wake up. So they wake up in your environment. So your timing couldn't be better, even with the weather this week. Fantastic. Lisa Waters Lane in the studio sharing her ideas on fruit trees and how to not just harvest fruit, but have them for beauty as well. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
As the days get longer and brighter, houseplants can struggle and scorch, but we have the solution.
At Waters, we've organized our houseplants from A to Z for the brightest of sunny locations, many even bloom.
With experts that know plants and how to make them grow.
Shipments of the freshest houseplants in town have just arrived from A to Z and ready for a bright new home.
Waters Garden Center, where people who love bright green houseplants, they love to shop, found in Prescott. All right, as promised, this show Throughout the week, we've been promoting gophers. Gophers are so bad. We had a class last week on gardening with the mammals, how to deal with rabbits and deer and javelina, pack rats. We even touched on prairie dogs and ground squirrels and really gophers. I asked how many folks were here having trouble with gophers. There's like 70, 80 people in this class. Every hand went up, or virtually every hand. It didn't just go up timidly. I mean, it went up with vigor. And so we went into detail on that. Let me just give you, if you've got pocket gophers, let me just go over how to deal with them. And these are, now if you're from the East Coast, you deal with moles. We do not grow moles here in the West, in Arizona. I don't know of any. Those mounds or those tunnels underneath your gardens, those are pocket gophers. And a pocket gopher has a little pocket underneath its chin, and it scoops up dirt. He uses it like a satchel, scoops up dirt, drags it out to exit tunnel, and shoves it out the hole. And so you'll get these mounds about, a foot across, several inches high. And a gopher can have typically about a 10 by 10 space that it burrows under. It can have up to 3-4 different nests underneath. So different homes, different bedrooms that it stays in, and it works different parts of its tunnel network throughout the week or the month. And so it's not using all of it at once. It's over here for a while, harvesting the insects, the grubs, the worms, the roots, your broccoli, your lettuce, your tomatoes. Literally, I've seen a cartoonesque version in my garden where the broccoli just disappeared under the ground and went away. I've witnessed that. That's very frustrating. Comical, yes, but frustrating. And so there's only really 3 ways. Well, I get 4. We can go over 4. There's 4 ways to deal with a pocket gopher in your garden. Some of you, they're so bad, it almost looks like a bomb field went off. There's just hundreds of gophers. You have more than one. I've literally killed 50 gophers off of one fence line from the house to the barn. Maybe it was, 200 yards away. So it was a little bit. Had a barbed wire fence, and the gophers were living underneath that fence as protection. It could keep the blue herons and the hawks and the coyotes and the bobcats off of them. And so they were using this as cover, basically. I trapped them off of that line because it was in the orchard right there. I didn't want to use poisons around my fruit trees, just some common sense things. 50 of them. So you've got traps you can use. That's what your grandparents used. They had this green wire trap they'd put in the hole, and the gopher would crawl into it, and it would pierce them right behind the shoulder blades and the heart, kill them most of the time. And so you do have to deal with a carcass if you're using a trap. They're kind of painful to use. You got to be a bit of a rocket scientist and a He-Man to set this thing. They've invented some new gopher traps. We've got one here at the garden center that are just super easy to set. With one hand, just flip it and boom, it's set, ready to go. But you want to get that trap as far down into that tunnel as possible. If you can get it in the main run, so they've got main tunnel networks where they're quite large. And then that mound is really just an exit tunnel. It's just a way where they derail and go and shove the dirt up there. They throw it up there. But it's not their main run. So sometimes if you can't get it in far enough, or if they're just busy shoving dirt out, they'll actually throw dirt over the trap or even throw the trap out of the tunnel because they're not busy looking at the trap. They're busy throwing dirt out. So you want to get it as deep in there as you can. What I found, my name's Ken. We're just friends. We're talking like neighbors over the fence. This is what's worked really, really well. Kind of an insider tip for my own traps. Not just gophers, but also ground squirrels, some of the other things. A dandelion weeder. The basic tool you have in the garden shed, that long probe with a forked end, that's the greatest tool ever for setting traps. And so I'll use that to find that soft spot. Underneath that mound, there's a tunnel. There's a soft spot where soft dirt is. I'll kick that mound off. I'll look for that soft spot with my dandelion weeder. And then I'll use that fork to kind of clean out that tunnel so I can, and even widen the the hole of that gopher hole a little bit so I can put that trap down just a little bit better, a little bit deeper, a little bit farther. It also works for bait. If you're using gopher bait, that's how you get it further down into the hole. So it's all about depth with gophers. Get as far as you can with any of these. So the trap, definitely secure your trap to a board. I use a piece of wire, and I'll attach it to a 2x4 or a 2x6, about, a foot and a half long. And I'll actually spray paint that board so I can spot it out in the field, because coyotes, they love a free meal. The barn cats, they'll drag that free meal up to the trapped gopher, up to the top of the barn. So I can spot it, because it is a dead thing. It's like a hors d'oeuvre. If you're wildlife out in the yard, your dogs, I've had the dogs dig them up, helps me spot them. And then also, gophers don't necessarily die every time. So I've had them drag my trap down into the ground where I couldn't find it again. So if I tie it together, it keeps the gopher from dragging it away and keeps the barn cats from hauling it away. Helps me spot it. Helps me set the trap easier. Just some things that have worked if you're going to do traps. What I finally did after I was setting 12 traps twice a day, I would catch like 12 gophers every day for a month. I had hundreds of gophers. For a month, I finally said, that is enough. There's got to be an easier way. And so I switched to bait. And they make a bait that they're attracted to, a seed laced with zinc, hopefully zinc, that they digest, they get sick to their stomach, go to bed, and don't wake up. And so you'll never see a dead carcass when you have a bait. The advice I can give you is, don't use bait responsibly. Don't leave it exposed where other things can get to it. Always put it under in the mound, and then backfill it, cover it, so the bait is only the gopher can get to it, nothing else. Never leave bait out exposed, and then only use zinc. Zinc does not have a secondary kill. So once that thing that eats it, a gopher, pack rat, something, eats it, it goes to bed, doesn't wake up. If a coyote comes or a dog or something else eats that gopher, it doesn't kill them. There's no second, it doesn't keep going. It just vaporizes off. Strychnine, there are still strychnine killings. We just talked to the ag inspector. He's going to go research some strychnine, killed a pack rat, and raptors, falcons, hawks, owls came in and ate that dead thing, and it killed them. So he's going to go research, because that is totally, completely illegal. He's going to go research this, do some homework on it. So that you're still hearing this. People, stop using strychnine-based products. It's ridiculous. It's the most dangerous thing. Don't touch it. Don't breathe it. Don't give it. Don't use it. It's dangerous. Why would you use that stuff? And some retailers are still selling that garbage. There's so much more responsible ways to use products anymore. Oh, it just drives me crazy. So at Waters Garden Center, we only sell zinc-based, and we'll make sure you're trained on how to use it before you leave. But I used a Gopher Probe. It's a little tool. It helps administer it under the ground. Okay, that's traps. We've got bait. Then you've got gas. Gases are a flare you throw underneath that tunnel. So you dig the tunnel out, get it exposed, light it, throw it in there, asphyxiates them. Doesn't work, don't waste your time. That's enough said. Okay, I think when they start to smell it, I think they backfill the tunnel, and just maybe you get a little knocked down, but man, it doesn't work very well. Same with those solar-powered sonic boom things. You stick them in the ground, it's supposed to pulsate and irritate them. Don't use them. Don't worry, it doesn't work. Yes, I sell them because people do their Google search and go, oh, I got to have one of those. I go, here it is. I get half of them back at the garden center. They get returned because they don't work. Don't waste your time, energy, or money, and don't order it on Amazon and have it come in and expect it to pulsate all your gophers away. It won't work. Trust me. The one that does work, that's organic, is Mole Max by Bonide, M-O-L, Mole Max, but it should be called Gopher Max. It's an organic spray, mainly it's you sprinkle on the ground. It's made from castor bean oil. It irritates the critter underground, so they move away to your neighbor's yard. So they won't bother that part of the garden. Organic, you can use it right in your vegetable gardens. Organic, you can use it with pets. Organic, it's organic. Works for about 6 to 9 months. Then you have to reapply. But Molmax is the organic way to shoo them away, repellent kind of thing. That's how you deal with gophers. Be right back with more on The Mountain Gardener.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
Let me just give a quick shout out. You know, a big organization. I get all the credit because I'm the front and the face, the voice, the writer, the content. I do presentations, garden classes in the community, so I get all the credit. But really, I don't do that much. I mean, I've got a great team of people here at Waters Garden Center that really make me look better than I really should. And a shout out to 2 of those folks. They are teaching this weekend's garden class on gardening for newcomers, Doug Arthur and Michelle Hyatt. I just want to say you guys are true professionals. I mean, like plant experts. Thank you for teaching that class. Very energetic, very informative. Couldn't do it without you. And I think sometimes we as bosses or we as owners or we as leaders don't think our folks enough. And so I think Michelle and Doug just did a super job. Thank you so much for doing that. And we've got a whole team of folks, but they just took the lead. They said, we want to teach that class. We want to tag team and do it. And we're going, hey, have at it. I want to make you rock stars. What can I do to help? And so we did that. And so very energetic. Gardening for newcomers. If you didn't catch that, what we do, we can do it 2 ways. One, we live stream that on the Waters Garden Center Facebook page, so our commercial page. We actually broadcast. You can watch. We set the camera like you're sitting in the class. So you can listen. You can even ask questions. We actually interact with those that watch it through Facebook. Secondly, we also are professionally videotaping that entire class. And so we capture that. We do some editing to shorten it down, get questions you couldn't quite hear. We try to reiterate those. We've got professional audio coming into that. Then we upload that in a few days, usually by the end of the week. We'll upload that to our YouTube channel. So Waters Garden Center YouTube. You just type that, go to YouTube, type it in. We've got over 1,000 videos, training on different subjects, what plants look like, classes. So we upload that so you can look at it live, or not live, but recorded as though it's live. You can watch that. And again, we position the camera like you're sitting right there as a student interacting. So it's like you're amongst all the folks. So we're getting better and better at this social media stuff. This is a true boon. This is what makes small business really valuable, because our local connectedness, we can share that like a box store can never dream of. They've got to have professional companies, and it's just more than what local can do. They just can't deal with local. They deal with national. And so we can do a better job. We can compete head on with those box stores just by being friendly, neighborly, local, consistent, timely. This is really important with gardening. We've got a class next week. I'm partnering with Grant Tibbetts, Johnny's Tree and Landscape Service. He's a local arborist, one of the best I've seen. He actually does some of my own work. He's coming in to teach a class on how to prune fruit trees. And then I'm going to tag team with him. He and I are going to do it together. What kinds of fruit trees can you plant? And we'll bring up some live specimens and take a lot of Q&A questions, all in about an hour. So that class will be next Saturday, February 24th. And then, kind of a true insight, we have a raptor experience. We're going to fly eagles, huge owls, kestrels in the back greenhouse. This is going to be a hoot. Come early. It'll be every Saturday at 9:30. We have something. This one's going to be packed. Last year We had over 100 people at this class. Bring your own chair if you want to sit. Come before 9:30 if you want a chair. So it's the Raptor experience. That's at 9:30. Then we'll have plants that attract more wildlife, birds, into the garden. And then March 17th and 18th is Water's official spring open house. 56th year we've actually done an open house. And we've got all of our growers coming to the garden center and share their experience, introduce their plants, talk about their products. That should be fun. A kind of kickoff, main event for spring 2018. Throughout the week, Lisa and I camp out here at Water's Garden Center. Please come in, say you heard the show, say hi.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
Ouch! Aw, man, another rock! Hi, I'm Rusty. You know, the shovel you're destroying trying to dig that hole? Sure, I get it. You got these beautiful plants at Waters Garden Center. Waters asked if they could plant them for you. But no, you had to do it yourself, even though they would plant, deliver, and guarantee your plants for 2 years. I hope I don't end up like that old pickaxe. Ouch! Prevent yard tool abuse. Waters Garden Center. They plant, deliver, and guarantee.
You've been listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to the area. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.